Hello everyone, welcome to my review of Spider-Man Homecoming. That's right folks, we are finally here. We are finally at the MCU Spider-Man movies, as well as continuing my Spider-Man review series. But before I talk about Homecoming, I want to talk very briefly about Peter Parker / Spider-Man's introduction in Civil War. I really enjoyed it. I rewatched it first before I watched Homecoming, and I love the innocence that Tom Holland brought to this character. And I love when he's fighting the Avengers. He's all nerding out and he's excited. And when he brings up the Star Wars Episode 5 idea, I was like, that was awesome. So I loved that, but this was my favorite moment.
Oh God. Hey buddy, I think you lost this.
And when Tom Holland shined up that Spider-Man logo onto the ceiling and it said Spider-Man will return, my mind and body were ready. Now, if you've seen my Amazing Spider-Man and Amazing Spider-Man 2 reviews, you'll know that I pretty much refused to see those movies when they came out in theaters and did not watch them until this review series. So put that into perspective, because that means that Spider-Man Homecoming was the first Spider-Man movie that I had seen in 10 years. That was insane to me when I first started, and when the Marvel logo came up and it played the Spider-Man theme by Michael Giacchino, I was like, yo, this movie's gonna be good. Surprisingly though, I actually hadn't watched this movie since it came out in 2017, so I was really interested, very interested, to see if I would like it still, to see if it would still have the awesome Spider-Man stuff that I loved when I first saw it. And thankfully, it still is as good as the first time I saw it. Now, this obviously is not my favorite Spider-Man movie, I'll be honest. As of right now, I'd probably put it as like my third, maybe fourth, depending on how I feel about Far From Home as of right now. But I really enjoyed this movie. I'm going to get into some reasons why, of course. This won't be a play-by-play, but it will have spoilers. And I really like how this movie starts. A film by Peter Parker. I love the fact that this film really puts into context as to why he wants to become an Avenger or a superhero instead of going to high school. Because in Civil War, he tells Tony, I got homework. So to see that video, it makes perfect sense as to why he would want to become an Avenger and not go to school, or become a superhero and not go to school. It makes perfect sense, and it also sets up why Happy Hogan becomes annoyed by him, which I'll be honest, rewatching it all these years later, back then it wasn't as annoying, and I understand why they did it, obviously, by the end of the film. But the adults, Tony Stark and Happy, not really taking Peter Parker seriously, I really felt like that was a misstep. Now, I know that Tony Stark has no idea that these weapons are from the Chitauri and all that type of stuff, so I understand that. But rewatching it, that part of this movie was just a little bit more annoying to me. And obviously I do like how it ends, but just a little bit annoying, that's all. But that was really one of my only flaws with the movie, and it's surprisingly a lot slower than it feels, but it's definitely more of a character movie. I like Michelle, I like Ned, I like Peter in this movie. And I do like the fact that the filmmakers set out to make a high school movie, because that's not something we saw in the other Spider-Man movies. And the first Spider-Man movie, he's only in high school for the first about 25 minutes, and he's not even Spider-Man yet. So I really like the fact that they show Spider-Man as a high schooler, as a sophomore in this movie. I really like the fact that they decided to do that. And they even came out and said they wanted to do like a Harry Potter style, where they did one each year. I really like that, because I also love Harry Potter. But I really like that about this movie. But I really like the fact that this movie depicts Peter Parker's everyday struggles with school and trying to be Spider-Man, which is obviously one of the reasons why Spider-Man is so popular. And of course, I cannot talk about Spider-Man Homecoming without talking about Michael Keaton as Adrian Toomes / the Vulture. He was fucking awesome. I love Michael Keaton already, not just because I'm a Batman fan, but I love Michael Keaton as an actor. And to see how seasoned he's become with this movie, with comic book movies, I think it's awesome. I think his inclusion in this was amazing. Easily the best, in my opinion, MCU villain that we had gotten outside of Loki and Thanos. But I think that he did a really good job. He was menacing when he needed to be. He was pissed off when he needed to be. He was happy when he needed to be. And I love the obvious fact that they made Vulture a scavenger in this. I love the fact that he goes around looking for Chitauri weapons and power sources and all that stuff. And they show him do all this stuff, and they show him fly, and they show him fight Spider-Man. I'll be honest, those sequences are actually pretty exciting. I don't know if it's just because I like Michael Keaton a lot or what, but I thought his inclusion in this was awesome. I love the visuals they had on him. I love how his wings were able to clip Spider-Man's webs. I love that little detail right there. I thought he did a really good job, and of course, the twist that he was actually Liz's father the whole entire time really conceptualized it, and honestly, I remember when I first saw that, I was shocked. The first thing that I thought was he had them hostage, and then right after that I realized, oh wait, That was his dad. Wow, that was unexpected. Like, I didn't see that coming at all. I thought it was awesome. And the final battle between Vulture and Spider-Man is actually pretty exciting. I wouldn't really say it's intense. You know, I don't think it's as intense as Green Goblin kicking the shit out of Spider-Man. I don't think it's as intense as Spider-Man and Doc Ock after what they had just been through. I just think it was exciting. It really was. I love the visuals of Vulture and him fighting. I love the fact that they made him look like a vulture. The way he's tackling Spider-Man in this scene. I absolutely love the way that looks. But for me personally, really the only two disappointing elements of this movie is really the intensity of the fights. They really aren't all that brutal. And also the inclusion of Herman Schultz, aka the Shocker, in this movie. I mean, they had one guy be the Shocker, and then they had a different guy be the Shocker, and they never say that, I don't know the actor's name, they never say that the black guy is Herman Schultz. They never say that. They never give that indication. And even though that doesn't really matter, I guess, when he does get the Shocker abilities, punching with electricity, that's not Shocker to me. I think the blast that the other Shocker did in order for them to get caught was more like what his powers would have been, but that was really the only disappointing about it. I mean, it's not like a huge burn on the movie, but he is in the movie quite a few times. Like, he's in with the heist every single time, but he doesn't really do anything. And then he has that confrontation with Spider-Man at the end. All he really does is punch a bus twice and then punches him once, and then he gets webbed up and it's over. I like how he gets defeated, but those are really the only two disappointing elements. I wish the fights were a little bit more brutal, and I wish that Herman Schultz, the Shocker, was more prominent in this movie, because they had a behind-the-scenes picture of him in full costume. So I don't really know what they were doing with that. But obviously he wasn't the main villain, or I wouldn't even really call him a secondary villain. But he is, and it's just they didn't do him that well. And I was really hoping they would, so that was a little bit disappointing. But really that's about it. The movie was fun. The movie did have excitement. That Washington Monument scene, that was actually pretty intense, rewatching it. I was like, oh my god, this is intense. So I really think they did a good job. I really think John Watts did a good job with this, and I'm so happy that they had him direct the last two, and that they actually, hopefully, had a plan going forward, and that they won't botch that plan in No Way Home. So hopefully we'll see what happens. But Spider-Man Homecoming was the perfect Spider-Man movie for me to come back into this franchise. Because, again, 10 years of waiting for a Spider-Man movie. That's a long time. And yes, this is definitely the first good Spider-Man movie since Spider-Man 2. I just wish for a little bit more intensity with the fight scenes, that's all. But the way they were shot, the way they were handled, I thought was pretty cool. And I will say the exciting part for me was when they were fighting on top of that giant plane. That scene was really exciting, and I love the visuals of Vulture fighting Spider-Man on that plane. I thought it was really awesome. Again, not as intense as I would have liked it to have been, even back then, but I thought rewatching it, it was really exciting. The other thing I want to address right now is the fact that they had Michelle beat MJ. Now, that didn't piss me off. It did kind of surprise me. But I do wish that they had just kept her as Michelle, because I liked her character in this movie. I thought she was really funny, in my opinion. But making her MJ, it's just whatever. You know, at this point, I mean, it's been since 2017. Honestly, I'm pretty much over it at this point. To be perfectly honest with you, I don't even remember them calling her MJ in Far From Home, even once. I'd have to relook at that, obviously, but at this point, I'm pretty much just living with it at this point. And of course, I really like the montage sequence where Spider-Man goes around saving people and helping people. I really liked that segment. I thought it was a lot of fun seeing him help an old lady find directions. Him stopping that bike thief, which I thought was an awesome scene. The fight in the bang sequence, even though it's not part of the compilation, was also really awesome to watch. I thought he was really funny in that. People don't really talk about the quips that much. He really gives a lot of them. I mean, that innocence, again, is all over this character, and I love it for this movie. Again, I do like the high school setting. I do like the innocence that they have Peter in this movie, and him wanting to leave school so he could become a superhero. I mean, that whole Berlin fiasco, I mean, you understand why that did that, why he was like that, and why he was so excited. I mean, that video, again, it really put it into context as to why he was going to decide to do that in this movie after in Civil War saying that. So I really thought this movie was good. Rewatching it, I was actually pleasantly surprised to find out it's still as good as I thought it was going to be. For me, it is the Spider-Man movie that I was looking for after Spider-Man 3, which if you saw my review for that, you know I actually loved it when it came out, not so much now. But I do think that it was worth the wait. So, guys, I'm going to give Spider-Man Homecoming a B+. I think this is a perfectly well-made Spider-Man movie. It's not one of the best in my opinion, not one of the top 2 at least, but I would say maybe in the top 3. I'm really excited to watch Far From Home because I'm very curious as to what I'm going to think about that movie and Mysterio rewatching it. But guys, what do you think about Spider-Man Homecoming? Is this the first Spider-Man movie you saw since Spider-Man 3? Or is it just the first good Spider-Man movie you saw since 2004? Let me know what you think below in the comments, please. Once again, please consider supporting this channel. I would absolutely appreciate it. Once again, thank you very much. Agent